1921, he hit 59, and that was only a little while after the launch.
Oh, LEQ. That's LEQ. She's this new robot, or I mean, it is a new robot just because it has a female sounding voice. Calm down with all that. It's a new robot, and it's manufactured by this Israeli tech firm, Intuition Robotics, and it's supposed to be this proactive way to help folks that are maybe lonely. In this particular situation, they depicted an elderly man, but there's a little more detailed explanation of how this whole thing works and all of its features and how it can help folks out. Watch more.
LEQ is a proactive, voice-operated device that does a number of remarkable things.
Howdy.
LEQ can help you establish and achieve health and wellness goals, track measures like heart rate and blood pressure, and set important reminders. LEQ can also help you stay connected to your family and friends with simple-to-use voice and text messages. With a new concierge service, LEQ can assist you with daily activities, such as ordering rides or getting your groceries delivered. But most importantly, LEQ is personable and empathetic. She provides entertainment, companionship, and is known to play music. Remember important details you share with her and tell jokes.
What is orange and sounds like a parrot? A carrot.
It's basically your sidekick, helping you to live healthier and happier as you age.
I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. Well, first talk about why this is the deal, then I'll tell about how my curmudgeon angle on this is. So this is all going down because the New York State Office for Aging will offer these machines to the homes of 800 older adults as a way to combat the growing problem of loneliness. That's what state officials said. Okay, I can see that, I understand that. But also the reasons why this, really fast, Dan, I'm sorry. So just a month before the global pandemic was declared, a national academics report showed that 1/3 of US adults aged 45 and up were lonely. Surveys have surprisingly found higher rates in younger adults as well. So it's hitting everyone, but they're focusing on many people that are elderly and have to deal with this. I just think it's kind of treating them like children. Am I seeing that weird? That's my one worry. It's like, hey, what's orange and rhymes with parrot? It's like, isn't that what you're teaching, like elementary, like preschool type of stuff? I feel like it seems a little disrespectful to me.
Yeah, I think the intent's there, like care for the elderly is so behind in this country, and we really need to do a better job of doing that. I think a lot of times the tech solutions to this are a little bit tone deaf into what people actually need. Like, oh, we'll have them plug into these other services like a rideshare and ordering delivery, and then we'll have it tell jokes like your Apple voice assistant that I won't say the name of and trigger the name of, right? So it's like the jokes aren't that great anyways. So, I just can't really say that this is gonna be the best thing, but I appreciate the people trying.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So you said all the assistant things, I totally understand. Like I'm not dumping on this. I get the idea, I get the usefulness, I get the assistant that it would help. I just, when it comes to advertising it, I feel like those are the things that are maybe just the small little creature comforts or whatever we were talking about before the show that maybe people want to mess around with for fun. Like in Teslas, you can push a button and a fart happens in the backseat.
Well, would you rather tell dirty jokes?
Let's not go there. But thank you, Dan, for asking me, and also thank you for being on the show today. That wraps it up for today's watch list. We'll be back on tomorrow for a big Friday show. David Schuster will show up. Dan, again, thank you for being here with us. Check him out over on TikTok, that is. This is not Twitch, but TikTok. Don't forget that part. Up next is John Iadarola with the Damage Report. We will catch you guys for a big Friday show tomorrow. See you.
welcome everyone to the most recent episode. There was some weird stuff going on our Skype window, but hello, I'm John Iadarola. This is the Damage Report. We talk about the news, sort of. And today we're joined, we're mixing it up. We're swirling up the week. Brett Erlich, how's it going? Host of Happy Half Hour.
Thank you for resumeing me, John. I am happy to be on a Thursday show. Whenever I get switched off the Friday show, it's bittersweet because on the downside, I can't do garbage people. But on the upside, that means I don't have any homework.
That is true. And it's a lot of homework to put together a garbage person. It is tough. I feel bad that Farron Cousins tomorrow will have to do that. That is mean of us to make him do so much. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, we're glad to have you here. There was some environmental issues, but we will be having Farron Cousins on tomorrow, assuming those issues have gone away. But anyway, Brett, we're happy to have you here. This week, the world was deprived of an episode of Happy Half Hour thanks to the 20th anniversary party of TYT, which we had yesterday at YouTube Space. Very fun. We got to see a whole bunch of people. I was like walking through the crowd and all of a sudden Nina Turner was there and I was like, oh my God, I didn't think Nina Turner would be here. How cool was that? And it was nice to see everyone. It felt like old times, didn't it?
It did. It felt like a wedding reception where you're like, there's a drinks portion and you're milling about and you're like, I'll have so much time to talk to everyone. And then there's like an event.
Yeah. I didn't.
Or it's like a wedding, one of those weddings with drinks before. And then there's like an event. And then afterwards you're like, oh, that's the end of it. I didn't get to talk. So I didn't talk to Nina.
I know.
But I did. Yasmin Khan was there. Jessica Burbank was there. A lot of people from, Ghosts of TYT past, Tom Hanks, Lucas Lillahome, James Gannon, Michael Scherzi was there.
What? These are people, if you're watching the show, you don't necessarily know who these people are, but they're from way back in TYT's history.
Yeah, it was funny because both of us, Lucas and I, had both been to a previous like big event at one of the, this was like at a YouTube space type thing. And I was driving around this area and there's like this bicyclist. And I'm like, why are the bicyclists and I both in this parking lot of the YouTube space? And we both realized it was nothing, it was the wrong place. And we both went to this other, and we saw him and it was Lucas. We both went to the wrong place at the same time.
Oh my God, he was right around. I think that's the parking lot that I parked in and then walked really far to get to the thing, but I don't mind, I like long walks. But anyway, yeah, it was very cool to see everyone. I wish, everyone watching who wanted, we used to be able to do live events that like at YouTube Space where people would just come. We do live shows, we do debates and stuff like that. We'll do it again at some point. Sophie was invited to this one. It was less exclusive than like the Webbies, so she was able to come, which is great. Anyway, really fast behind the scenes info, because of course, there are people at TYT, employees and contributors that I'd never met in person before. Like I think that was the first time I ever met Dave Schuster was this week. So I can confirm heights of people. Wosny Lambre, taller than you'd think. That guy's actually very tall. I don't know why I had assumed that he wasn't, but he's actually very tall. Jessica Burbank, shorter than you'd think.
I think she was exactly the right height.
Well, I'm not debating right height. I'm saying shorter than I thought. I don't know why. And Yaz, very tiny. She is a very small person.
You know who's taller than anyone thinks is Nando, who was there. Nando's like
Nando
6'3".
taller. He is very tall.
So happy. So happy to see Nando and Waz. We just stood in the back corner.
Waz came up to me and gave me a very tall hug that was warmer and it wasn't the longest, most uncomfortable hug that I had. That was someone else. But
that's my wife.
He gave me like a hug, like a family member after I came back from war. And at first, because I'm a broken person, I sort of like resisted it, but then I like fell into it. And it was very nice, actually.
Give in.
Anyway, yeah, I did give in. It was great. Anyway, it was great to see all these people, getting to see some of our awesome contributors, and Ida was great. She was the MC of the event, and she's awesome. Just give her a mic and let her go. Like that's all I want. Tom Hanks was there. So many people were there. It was great. Now that said, we do have a lot of news that we're going to get to, including some really fast breaking news. We're gonna get into a whole lot of stuff. A rundown meticulously crafted from my guest, Farron Cousins, who isn't here. But don't worry, Brett can talk about this stuff too. Before we get to that though, I do want to start with sad news. People might have seen this on social media. Actor Ray Liotta has apparently passed away, I believe at 67 years old. My only real thought there is 67 doesn't seem like enough. What do you think, Brett?
I agree.
Like, there's worse. People die earlier, but 67 is just not quite. Like at least like 75, right? Don't you want at least like a good 75?
That is such a weird place to be negotiating acceptable deathages.
Because you want the 8 extra years. That's what you want, I think.
Oh, I
67's
get
young.
it, but like, so you're talking to like a kid who went to Catholic school, and at that point in your life, they developed these weird like bargainings with unseeable powers that you just end up defaulting to, that just do really weird stuff. You'll have weird thoughts. And so for me, what I was like, well, let's start with 120 years if we're negotiating with the Lord. It's just a weird thing that it does to you. But I will be watching Goodfellas pretty soon here.
In honor, yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the audience related to this. So if you had to say, okay, I want to live to at least this age, knowing that if you get to that age, you don't get to go farther, where is the balance point for that? Where you would be fine with only this being your cap? I'm curious. I feel like it's more than 67. No, not 100 years, something reasonable. Anyway, so obviously very sad. A lot of sad news, that's the way that it goes. But we've got a bunch of different stuff that we're gonna be talking about, including some stuff that's pretty positive. So along the way, if you would mind hitting the like button, assuming you're on a platform that allows that. Some of you might be listening on the podcast and you're like, you say that every day, John, but I don't have a like button. That is true, but you can rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. So do that. And then in the future, when I ask you to like it, you once again will have an issue with it. But for now, let's get to that. And Sophie's getting frustrated, so we're gonna get in the news in a little bit. Sophie's definitely ready. Brett, are you ready?
I am now.
He is. He had to think about it.
Sorry,
Okay,
Jesus.
so with that
I
said,
did something horrible to Jesus. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's like, my guy, just say it fast or don't say it.
Exactly. That's a good point. I feel bad for Jesus, and I wish that Jesus had been at the thing last night. It would have been great to hear from him. That said, we are going to launch into a conversation about something that we have not talked about. I really only wanted to know what Perrin thought about it, but Brett, now you're gonna have to insert. So with that said, we're gonna launch into this topic, starting with this.
Okay, you know this case is being televised, right?
I am aware that there are cameras.
And so this gets you your 15 minutes of fame, doesn't
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
I can ask that question.
Overruled.
So I stand to gain nothing from this. I'm actually putting myself kind of in the target of TMZ, a very litigious organization, and I'm not seeking any 15 minutes here. Though you're welcome to speculate. I could say the same thing by taking Amber Heard as a client for you.
A little argumentative, don't you think?
Oh, hardly. I find that to be purely logical. Thank you.
No.
Okay, so that catty little back and forth between the Heard side and the Depp side in the trial, I think sums up this entire thing pretty well. Dueling accusations that this is just about making a splash, getting a bit of fame. On the one side, the gentleman there is apparently an ex-TMZ employee. Their side is being accused, Depp's side is being accused of tipping off TMZ. So supposedly he can sort of attest to why that wouldn't make sense. Brett, you actually raised this video to me. Why does this strike you as one of the most absurd moments in a trial that has been, of course, marked with many absurd moments?
It's absurd because everything about this is a 15 minutes moment combined with the instinct of people to take a side when it's pretty clear that A, it's not really any of their business, and B, like there is no way that this trial can accurately communicate what their relationship was about. And the people weighing in on it in the general discourse of America are definitely not focused on any legal procedure or specific legal precedents or mechanisms that will result in one of these two getting a huge payout, so that Amber Heard can either get $100 million or Johnny Depp can get $50 million.
Yeah, I know. Look, as you say, there's been a lot of moments, and I know that you put together, a little mashup of some of those. We're gonna jump to that now. I definitely have some broader commentary I want to make about this, but let's catch up a little bit on how this thing has played out with this.
And you would sometimes drink whiskey in the mornings too, right? During this time period.
Isn't happy hour any time? I thought that some human being had actually dropped a grumpy, pardon the term, onto the bed. We've had cocaine together maybe a couple of times. I once gave Marilyn Manson a pill so that he would stop talking so much.
Yes, now of course we were able to see all of this and much more because every moment of this has been broadcast live and will continue to be broadcast live until the very end. And I'm gonna keep it real, I have not watched basically any of it. That now makes up about 95% of what I've seen of it. But that said, I've been watching like a creeper from the outside, not the trial, but everything around the trial. And I feel confident saying this should not have been broadcast and the entire thing has been a very bad idea. And I am very disappointed in literally everyone involved in any part of this who's been paying attention to it. The media apparatus that has been trying to squeeze every cent of ad revenue out of this, the right wing that has tried to produce from this a focal point for their sexually frustrated, impotent male followers to feel justified in banding together in a massive online mob to just hate women and the very concept of women. And also women I see discussing this that don't seem to get that that's what the end goal of all of this is to destroy any faith whatsoever in women telling the truth about the horrible experiences that they've had. The entire thing is disgusting. And I judge things. I try never to, like, we will joke, Brett, you and me, about like, oh, you're better than me because you don't watch. No, I think anyone who has checked out of this is better in some fundamental way. And I think I blame everyone, literally everyone. Stop it, make it go away.
Right. This is anytime, I guess the thing I like to focus on is that anytime there is a movement that happens online that is undeniably for good. For example, like, let's start believing women when they say, or at least taking women seriously when they say they're victims of sexual abuse, and understand the headwinds that they face and the side winds that try to blow them off track as they decide whether to finally bring this to light. Mm-hmm. And that's an undeniably good thing to advocate for. There are always people who just hate that because they're easily triggerable dudes, or they're easily triggerable people in a class that typically has power over another class, and they hate it. And so anytime something comes up that might feed into the counter narrative to the original movement, such as Me Too, there will be this disproportionately strong backlash, because of course there would. It's from the class that has more power to squash that. And not just to point out that sometimes there might be people who take advantage of a new movement to believe women or be more critical of cops. Instead, they want to say that everyone in that group is terribly evil and wildly misguided and horrible. And that is just what this entire Amber Heard, Johnny Depp hysteria reeks of to me.
100%. Yeah. And I know some people will try to put a little bit of, like, I see people in the chat like, don't you care about women abusing men? Yes, I do. This has nothing to do with that. I don't care if you have deluded yourself into thinking that elevating this to be the highest profile story in the world is fundamentally about that. You can only maintain that fiction if you went into this not caring at all about any of the stuff having to do with Johnny Depp. And it's all just confirmation bias. You hear every line of it, and I don't care about the lines of it. We're not covering the lines. I don't care about who pooped in the bed. I don't care about who cut off whose finger or whatever. I'm not interested in any of that. And neither are the people obsessing over this. And look, you all need to understand the reasons people turn in media. I'm saying the people who choose what they're going to cover is in the last couple, like since the 2020 election, since the insurrection, news viewership has dropped. And so people are desperate to find what is the thing that's going to get people to pay attention. So if you see, for instance, last year, former lefties suddenly making like 5 videos a day of anti-vax stuff, that's why. They didn't have a fundamental change in how they view vaccines scientifically. They knew that if they put that out, they will get an audience because, and it's similar to this, the right wing is super invested in this stuff. And so when people are doing streams, literally they can just put the trial on for hours and live stream it and get bigger audiences than they've ever gotten before. You can choose to believe that they just actually care about this thing so much. It's that they want the viewership and they don't care what socially they're feeding into, what culturally the objective of this is. Why is the right spending tens of thousands of dollars advertising stuff about this? Because they think they can get something from it. If you think that Ben Shapiro's like core concern is about men being abused by women, you're deluding yourself. They think this is going to radicalize and weaponize men against, as as Brett said, the Me Too movement against women more broadly in this moment, especially where people are really concerned about reproductive rights being stripped away. Well, now the counter narrative is women also are big liars and you shouldn't trust them. So I just find all of that super disgusting. It's super exploitative. Nobody cares about any of this. Like we have all this stuff that we're gonna get to. Like I'll bring up this tweet at least. Michelle Dauber, who's of Stanford University, saying that taking a trial, particularly like this, that is about abuse and making it live streamed is inherently creating a toxic environment. And that it doesn't serve a public interest to make someone play out abuse live on TV. There are trials where maybe it makes sense to have them be live. Or even a subset, not the entire thing. It makes no sense aside from a desire to make money for this to have been broadcast in the way that it was.
And it's huge for law and crime. You and I were talking about this, and John and I had a very fun lunch yesterday where we went to McDonald's and See's Candy. And we were talking about how this is huge for law and crime. They're gaining massive amounts of followers and everything. That's, I think, Dan Abrams' joint. And I don't begrudge them that. They're covering it. They were allowed to put a camera in the courtroom. It's a decision made by the judge to allow or disallow. I just don't see a world in which a judge allowing cameras in that courtroom really helps, especially if the entire both sides of this civil suit involve use of media to slander someone.
Yeah, 100%. I find it so frustrating of all of the things going on in the world for people to be fired up about. Who genuinely thinks that this is the thing that we should care about? This is obviously a distraction, it is intentionally a distraction. And I get that some people maybe need a distraction. Not all of the people tuning in. When a stream has 200,000 people watching, it's not all of them are guys whose entire life is wishing that they could be more like Ben Shapiro. There's plenty of just, like Facebook moms and stuff like that. That ooh, it's courtroom drama. It's look at that, they're talking about poop and stuff like that. Like literally pick any other subject and dive into that. I wish. Okay, with that said, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be jumping into some of the new information that is coming out about the timeline in the Uvalde shooting yesterday, and then some of the absolutely horrendous responses coming to it from the right wing. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there. Sophie's little comments about going to break are so ridiculous. Anyway, okay, let's jump into this. Are people? Okay, it's out of order. Okay, so let's see. Doomslayer Dragon, welcome to Tier 1 membership over on YouTube. Thank you for being here, much appreciated. Let's see. Paul says in the super chat, Depp fought to make this trial live. John, Amber did not. It wasn't a media decision to make it live. Bad take, Jesus. No, I get it, and like I know that I'm supposed to care if somebody thinks that I have a bad take or whatever. The show is me being honest about what I think, and I cannot tell you how little I care about Johnny Depp's PR campaign or whatever. He can want it to be broadcast. Who are the media companies choose whether they run it. The YouTube channels choose whether they do hours of live coverage of it. Johnny Depp isn't calling Twitch streamers and chatting them up every day. This is a coordinated thing with a whole bunch of people making a self-interested economic decision to exploit this, either liking the meta effect it's gonna have culturally or not caring about that effect. That's what I'm saying.
And that's why I say I don't begrudge them for making this decision. I think the like whether you can allow the only one to talk about is whether or not to allow them into the courtroom. But I think it's also just this weird game of politics thing where people have just this floating attention span at any given time. And what the previous news cycle was informs what they're more likely to latch onto, but what's available is probably the bigger determining factor in that. So if Johnny Depp, if in the wake of only Politico poop show news, there's Johnny Depp's pooping on a bed trial, well, yes, num. And we used to have a lot more stuff like that to consume, by the way. We used to have a lot more non-political pop culture stuff that we all could gravitate toward. But now it's like no matter what you think is like the most popular thing that everyone's talking about, compared to what it was like in the 90s and the early 2000s, way fewer people are talking about whatever it is you think everyone knows and is talking about. Way fewer people. It's all siphoned off into little bubbles.
Yeah, and by the way, I see the chat. It's like, you say that you don't care and yet you're talking about.
I made him do this.
No, I might have anyway. I am not going to just sit passively by while self-interested people drive a narrative for their own, like people tuning in this may not know why the Daily Wire thinks this is the most important thing in the world. Me not caring about the day-to-day legal substance of it doesn't mean that I don't care about the news or what people are focusing on, about how they're being manipulated and radicalized. I do care about those things. I really don't think that I needed to argue, I needed to explain this. I think most people understand the distinction there. Anyway. The old hippie dragon says, had a little money from my reefer budget. Thank you, old hippie dragon. I do appreciate that. Brandon King wants to live to be 5,000, presuming we survive this next century because climate change. In 3,000 years, I want to be a cosmic engineer. It doesn't say, if you're referring to the engineers that I know of from the alien universe, I don't think that that's gonna work out too well for you. Rebecca sent it a super chat to say, listen, I'm thrilled Brett is here this week and all, but this week you keep shifting your guest normal day and it's just throwing me off, man. Between Brett today and Jared on Tuesday, I keep thinking it's the wrong day. Sorry, we're just adapting to what's possible.
This whole week has been me thinking it's Friday, and it just not even being remotely close to Friday.
I know, it refuses to be Friday. It really should become Friday at some point. Okay, let's see. Brandon King says, I just realized Brett kind of sounds like John Mulaney.
No, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about. We'll be back.
During coming out of the break, you're not. If you weren't there, you weren't gonna know what we're talking about. Brett loves doing the John Mulaney voice. By the way, he doesn't do it on the show much. He doesn't have the opportunity to, but he loves it.
I really like to focus on getting the sound out from my high feminine hips. That's what's weird about me.
It is. Okay, now unfortunately, we're gonna have to make a transition from the John Mulaney voice to incredibly dark and serious stuff. So, with that said, we're gonna try. Let's jump into this. What you were just watching was a very small excerpt from video apparently taken during the Uvalde shooting of a number of different parents, one of whom it appears in the background of that video is being restrained on the ground by police. They're being stopped from getting to the actual school. Cops with tasers milling about. This is apparently shot during it. People say that they can hear shots in the background. The parents say that they're hearing shots. I can't attest to that necessarily, but I do want to read a few of the quotes from the longer video, which is available all over the place. You have parents saying, these cops are right here. bro, there's an expletive shooting at the school and these expletive cops are telling everybody to leave. Dude, while everybody's here trying to pick up their expletive kids, the kids are all in there and the cops ain't doing expletive, but standing outside. You know that they're kids, right? They're little kids. They don't know how to defend themselves. And all of this really gets to the core of the biggest gap in our knowledge that is being slowly filled, and every bit that is filled is horrifying people about exactly what was done and what was not done while this shooting was going on. Because we're finding out that it was over a relatively long period of time. First reports of the gunman approaching the school came around 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday. By the time he'd been killed, it was after 1 p.m., a long period of time. And all of the evidence that appears to be coming out, could be contradicted, appears to show that there was nothing like a strong drive by the authorities to get in there and stop him. And along the way, they appear to have lied about what actually happened. At a press conference, the police said that they immediately engaged him and then they pinned him in a room. It now appears that that was a lie. He locked himself willingly in a room with victims and was allowed to stay there for a very long period of time. And along the way, you have those parents in that video desperately hoping that something will be done. And so we're gonna read a few graphics here. Some of this is really, really dark stuff. You have onlookers urging police officers on video to charge into the building. One woman yelling, "Go in there, go in there," as other parents are saying, how can we get past the cops so we can at least do something? If they're not gonna go, can we at least try to get in there? And they're being stopped by the cops. Javier Cazares has a 4-year-old who was killed in the attack, Jacqueline. He says he raced to the school as soon as he heard about the shooting. He was so upset that they weren't doing anything that he was one of those who tried to get them to move into the school. He was trying to get other parents and he says, let's just rush in because the cops aren't doing anything like they're supposed to. More could have been done. They were unprepared. There were 5 or 6 of his fathers hearing gunshots and police officers were telling us to move back. We didn't care about us. We wanted to storm the building. We were saying, let's go, because that is how worried we were. And we wanted to get our babies out. So this is so horrifying. They're on video. They're trying to convince the cops to do something. And they're saying at least that they're hearing the shots. And with each shot, they're terrified that their child was just killed. And many of them were killed during that time. And again, there's a lot that we don't know. Some things we don't know have already been proven to have been lies by the cops. Perhaps more lies will come out over time. But Brett, what do you think about this?
I mean, this is the most harrowing, horrifying, like little bit a video to come out of it. There's other angles shot by other people, filmed by other people, and you can definitely hear shots in insanely high volume, both in loudness and quantity of gunshots. Mm-hmm. And of course the parents are gonna wanna go in there. Of course the parents are gonna wanna rush and protect their kids. Of course there's gonna have to be police officers keeping them from doing that. And I don't think the solution is to have the parents rush in. I think the solution is to communicate to everyone that there are other countries that have faced, mass shootings and have acted legislatively to prevent them from happening. And those bits of legislation have worked and have not jeopardized the actual real freedoms of anyone other than, and conversely, it has increased the freedom, the peace of mind, and the freedom of people to be at school and not have to go to school in a place that ends up feeling like a prison, which is what most of the other side's proposed solutions would result in. But this is just one of those things that's like, I don't know what the solution is to this specific instance. I know it's probably not to turn every police officer into one of the tactical units that they were waiting for. I think it's probably to do your best to keep that gun out of that person's hand. But like, this is the reality that America creates by virtue of its laws and culture. And I think both need to change.
100%. Yeah. By the way, someone in the chat is saying that I said 4 years old. It's fourth grade. I apologize. I'm amped up. Apologies if I'm misstating anything. It's a 4th grader. But in any event, and they will say there's a million other things that need to be done. other than just stopping him from getting the gun. And when you point out, hey, we could have stopped this person from getting the gun, they'll say, well, laws have nothing to do with it. You can't stop someone from getting this. He waited until he could legally do it. The law could have been different. I know that they love to conjure up this idea that it doesn't matter what the law is. You could literally ban all these guns and all these kids would just go on the black market and meet up with arms dealers and get the guns. We don't live in Breaking Bad. That's not how people actually live their lives. Gun laws are very successful in a lot of contexts in stopping people from getting these guns. If you require evidence of that, look to virtually every other country on the face of the earth, where the fact that these schools are soft targets, they're gun-free zones, doesn't seem to have conjured up madmen with assault rifles in the countries where they can't legally get them. Anyway, look, there's other horrifying stuff here. So one thing is that, and again, I don't know exactly what was going through the minds of all of the cops about why exactly they couldn't get in there, why the fact that they couldn't unlock the door proved to be such a barrier for so long that they had to get a school employee in to unlock it. They seem to be capable of knocking down doors in other environments. But Lieutenant Christopher Olivares is a Texas Department Public Safety spokesman, apparently said in an interview that some of the cops went into the school to other rooms to get their kids out. At the same time, and I understand you're horrified for your kids, but they're stopping parents from getting in there to get their kids out, threatening to tase them, to knock them to the ground. At the same time, they're going in and not pushing in on the actual shooter who has unfettered access to the people he's locked himself in with. Again, there is a lot that we don't know, but the entire thing feels horrifying. And we have one other thing we have to get to. So there's a report on Ken's 5 that says that when the cops came, the cops said, yell if you need help. So trying to identify where people needed help. One of the persons in my class, according to one of the sources, said help. The guy, the shooter, overheard and he came in and shot her. The cop barged into that classroom, the guy shot at the cop and the cop started shooting. I don't know that they could have known that when they have people who are trying to evade detection by the shooter, that they could know that if they say something, they could be killed. And perhaps this account is false or mistaken. But according to the story, not only did they wait so long to get in there and actually stop the person, and potentially along the way, more people during that time could have lost their lives, but they also contributed to one direct loss of life. Again, it's a chaotic time, Brett. It is easy to throw around blame without knowing exactly what was happening, but none of this is looking good coming out of this.
Yeah, and there's one side proposing solutions. There's an amazing video that's going around right now that is just a super cut of all the solutions that Fox News is proposing to this issue. And none of them are legislative. They're like, well, we need to train the kids on how to defend themselves. And we need to train the teachers, and there need to be booby traps, and we need to have hire angel mercenaries or ridiculous things like that. Yep. And none of them are, well, let's go back to having an assault weapons ban like we did when the rate of killings like this was lower.
Yeah.
We already had the law.
See that.
We already had the law. That's what's so frustrating. We already had a law banning assault weapons. And they're pretending that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
If you want to see that video, the pre-show of TDR is already up on the channel. We do play it during that. Then they would say that having the assault weapons ban, that creates tyranny. Literally every one of the people saying that these days was perfectly happy to see the Republican Party overturn the results of the last presidential election. So don't exactly trust them about their fears about tyranny.
Absolutely, and the right wing picks and chooses which big business to vilify based on their own personal convenience. And I'm only explicitly talking about campaign finance convenience. There's an instinct in big tech to be kind of like libs and fun libs. But when it comes to giant businesses, we all need to realize that the NRA is a giant business that deals in as much death as other businesses they wholeheartedly get behind, like the fossil fuel industry and the pharmaceutical industry. That's what they do. They get behind giant organizations that will contribute to their financing and re-election campaigns. And we need to point out the insane hypocrisy of that. Specific, and what's frustrating is when you see moments like this, when you see families having to stand there as their children are audibly slaughtered from afar, as a police officer who the right wing is lauding as this giant mega hero is just like, well, I'm just kind of on perimeter duty today.
Yeah.
That's when you know something's wrong.
Yeah. And by the way, we have to get on to some of these other videos, but I just want to say like, so I know some people will be defensive and say, well, John, they'll ignore all the caveats I gave. John, think about the cops. It's terrifying that they would have to try to go in and take out a person with an AR-15. No, but think about what you're saying there. I don't want that person to have an AR-15. I don't know where the cops stand on that. I don't know if they think it should be perfectly legal for people to have guns that are so deadly that an entire pack of cops are rightly terrified to go up against it. I don't want them to have to face weapons like that, bullets capable of tearing through their Kevlar vests. I don't want those things to be legal. The right wing does. I tweeted this morning, the simple statement, I wish he hadn't had this deadly of weaponry, is something that is indisputable. You have a moral obligation to think that. Everyone on some level does think that. And yet the right wing can't say it because at the end of the day, they do have a greater commitment to those guns than they do to the lives that were lost. So I don't understand. Why don't we have cops in the forefront of the gun control movement? Some do, rightly. But every one of those cops, rightly terrified of going up against someone who's holding a weapon that is better suited to being on the ground in Ukraine right now, should be calling for them to be banned. Because inevitably, the next time they're called to take out one of these people, they will have chosen the most deadly weapon they can legally get. And right now, that's these sorts of rifles. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna jump into a whole bunch of nonsense, including with Ted Cruz. So let's jump into this video.
You know, I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
That is Ted Cruz being asked an incredibly simple question by a reporter on Sky News. Why is it that only America has these sorts of problems? And Ted Cruz, who considers himself an amazing debater, a shrewd politician, crumples in the face of that simple question and runs away. But that said, I want you to see more of the context. What is it that led him to flee? Take a look at this.
18 sets of parents who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight again.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not, it's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some violent psychopath murders people.
A violent psychopath who's able to get a weapon so easily. 18-year-old with 2 AR-15s.
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world just, they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
You know, I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
It is just an American problem, sir.
Mr. Cruz, why is America the only country that faces this kind of mass shooting?
But you can't answer that. You can't answer that, can you, sir? You can't answer that. Why is this country?
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest, it may be the most popular.
Why are our kids dying in school?
So I don't know the politics of those Sky News reporters, but I feel like they were being very reasonable. They were asking very simple questions that no matter how simple they are, nonetheless, no right winger can actually answer them. They'll give all sorts of explanations for why these shootings happen. None of those make sense in light of the fact that they don't happen in other countries that have all of the things that they would cite. And when someone points out an issue that you can't address, saying people come here anyway, that doesn't diffuse the concern, and he knows that. I mean, he would say, after all, there's a crisis on the border. It needs to be fixed. We're not safe. Well, but people come here anyway. I mean, lots of people love to visit the United States. I guess it's not that much of a crisis, I suppose. You talk about like Chicago's gun violence or whatever. Yeah, but people come here anyway. Inflation is bad. That's a concern you have. Yeah, but people come here anyway. That's not an actual answer to the very simple question. Why is it that we have hundreds of school shootings and no other country on the face of the earth, despite having diversity or inequality or mental health problems or whatever it is that they want to, lack of fathers, a secular society. There are all sorts of societies like that all over the world. They don't have school shootings like this, only we do. Why is that? And Brett, he can't answer it. None of them can.
Ted Cruz is, if you want to know anything about Ted Cruz, the best way to describe him is queefy booger slush. That's what Ted Cruz is. He is just this nebulous, knowledgeless guy who loves to communicate nonsense in a way that sounds like he really cares, and he doesn't. And that if the truth about Ted Cruz and pretty much every one of the other queefy booger slushes on the right and on the left, all of the politicians, the way they talk is the language of queefy booger slush. It's just this nothing. All those kids out there never gonna breathe again, and the families are never gonna kiss their kids again. He gets to do that all the time because he never faces a reporter like the ones from Sky News who just asked him questions and then pointed out when he couldn't answer them that he couldn't answer them. They have, and it was all exposed by that first debate with Donald Trump when he just showed up and just pushed them, and they all fell down like dominoes. Because
they don't get challenged.
That doesn't work with people who are watching unless it works unless there's someone else who's out there being real, on camera, in front of people, communicating to them that this guy's full of it. And that's exactly what Ted Cruz is. He is wildly, stupidly full of it. Full of what? Queefy booger slush.
I really was thinking we wouldn't have to hear that again, but I think you're onto something. Anyway, that's an established senator. They're waste of space. They're not going to do anything. But elections allow us, the chance of bringing in new blood. We're going to get some new senators. Why don't we turn? We're going to do this last couple of videos. Why don't we turn to? Sorry, Sophie. Why don't we turn to a potential upcoming senator? Take a look at this.
See, that is a person wielding that weapon. Cain killed Abel. And that's the problem that we have. And I said, what we need to do is look into how we can stop those things. He talked about doing a disinformation. What about getting a department that can look at young men that's looking at women, that's looking at just social media? What about doing that, looking into things like that, and we can stop that way? But yet they want to just continue to talk about taking away your constitutional rights. And I think there's more things we need to look into. This has been happening for years, and the way we stop it by putting money into the mental health field, by putting money into other departments rather than departments that want to take away your rights.
Okay, I'm going to quote Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Well, he's a dumbass. The idea that the solution is that we need to look into boys who are looking at girls who are looking at social media, and then what? And then based on their creepy behavior, bar them from buying guns? Hell, that might actually work. I mean, he might actually be onto something, because we all know that creepy stalking behavior, domestic abuse, misogyny is actually a pretty strong predictor of a lot of sorts of violent crime. That might actually be something. Would he want them to be barred from getting the guns? Well, right now he has no idea about literally anything, but soon the Republicans will tell him we don't support red flag laws, and Herschel Walker, that'll be out the door for him. So what? We're just watching their social media activity. What is the actual answer? What would you have done to have stopped this violent criminal from getting legal access to a weapon this deadly? And he's got absolutely nothing. That was as much as he was able to string together there.
I am fascinated that you were, and impressed that you were able to understand what his argument even was.
I hope maybe that's what it was.
It was nothing. Herschel Walker is so stupid. And that's literally how I have to refer to him. Because otherwise, what's happening is the right wing is taking a certifiably mentally incapacitated CTE victim and using him as a meat puppet to fill a seat and turn it red, because it seems like the South elects football coaches and stars to Senate seats. Tommy Tuberville, Herschel Walker. Like, Herschel Walker cannot function as a human being. Someone's got to say it. Like, as much as they're saying like Joe Biden can't put a sentence together, he can.
Yeah,
he can. It's slow. I'd rather it was faster. But Herschel Walker is a dumb person. Like, he is stupid. He doesn't know anything about anything. I haven't seen him put together a sentence, much less a paragraph, ever.
He's supposed to be responsible for well, theoretically, if the executive branch ever cared what the legislature thought about like questions of going to war, about our national health care policy, a response to a pandemic. He can't. Would you trust him to make his own lunch? Honestly, at this point? What final point goes to you, Brett?
When people talk about why we need to keep the filibuster around, it's because the Senate is the greatest deliberative body in the world. And that guy is just a body.
Yeah.
There is no deliberation. The only way the term with similar etymology to deliberative exists is deliberate. Like, it is debilitative. Like, there's nothing going on. He is just a body.
Yeah. Okay, well, unfortunately, we are way over. So we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got a little bit more reactions to the shooting, a little bit of helpful reactions, a little bit of unhelpful reactions. We'll have that for you after this. By the way, Rashad is trying to push me to get past. I still feel fairly uncomfortable even talking about Herschel Walker. I'm trying to get past it just because he's clearly ignorant, but also clearly being affected by the natural health outcomes of the sport that he engaged in. But he wants to have power over the nation, so I suppose we have to address it. Now that said, let's jump into some of the comments. People have been sending us a lot of super chats. John said in a super chat, I live in Texas and attended Robb Elementary. This hits close to home. 212th mass shooting this year and 27th mass school shooting this year. No other country has that. Why is that? They don't have an answer. Doomslayer Dragon says, hey there, Dragon Squad. My little sister just got her BA of Health Sciences today, so I'm in a very good mood, sending positive vibes your way. That's congratulations. That is awesome. James Thompson says, can Cal or move the NRA meet from Texas this weekend? How unfeeling are them? I don't know. They should obviously cancel it, but again, we're way past that stuff. They're going to go and they're going to speak.
Yeah, when the boldest, most noble person is Don McLean, who's saying Miss American Pie, he's pulled out of it.
He's more responsible than the actual politicians.
But we've known what that organization is for forever.
Agreed. Utter Bullspit sent in a super chat to say, tell Brett to stop talking so much so you can get to more super chats.
Sorry.
Sent in a super chat to say that. Anyway, Bay Photo says in a super chat, Hassan pointed out yesterday that the Depp Heard trial streams were attracting more views in real time than Uvalde coverage. Priorities, America. Yes, I'm glad that he pointed that out. And I get, to some extent, it's super depressing watching the coverage of Uvalde. I get it, but priorities and all that. Vanta Dragon, thank you for your super sticker, much appreciated. Laurel Dragon says, hey DD, some kids from my old high school were suspended yesterday for bringing fake guns to school, day after the mass shooting. We live in an insane. Imagine if we worshipped anything like we worship guns. Any random thing, like Pokemon cards. Imagine if we worship them to the extent that we worship guns. Anyway, Moondragon says, I feel like Walker took lessons in extemporaneous speech from Trump.
Oh, 100%.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, but Trump puts a little bit more energy into it generally.
Well,
he sells it a bit better.
But the student is not the master. He is doing the kinds of things that Trump does, which is just talk until you happen upon something you think sounds like it might exist in the word cloud of what the person asked you about.
Yeah, 100%. Moonraven has been a member for 16 months. Says, I'm feeling incredibly lucky to be able to see my teen graduate high school today, and sad for those parents who had this day unfairly ripped away from them. 100%. And by the way, like we didn't get to an account of one of the teachers from there, but like teachers deserved so much more respect and, more importantly, pay, compensation for what they do, even before they were expected to be first responders to mass shootings. That they were expected to react with more bravery in the moment than cops were, and did in this particular shooting. And by the way, one of the teachers said, talking to a reporter about the experience of huddling with the kids at that school, like this is coming after months of being demonized nationwide by the right as a potential pedophile. That's what the teacher said. Like, can you imagine? Sherry Bove has been a member for 17 months, says, I agree, John. I don't know to what, but thank you for being here. And more importantly, thank you for agreeing with me. Utter Bullspit, member for 6 months, says, you all should do a meet and greet. I would love that. We used to, we will again at some point once we're well past the pandemic. I look forward to that, and hopefully you'll be able to be there. And with that said, we'll be right back. Okay, we are running a little bit behind on the rundown. That has become just a natural thing. We get invested in the topics. But with that said, let's take a look at two different approaches to dealing with the plague of gun violence that we've got. Let's jump into this. I want to give you a tale of two sort of avatars for their side. AOC for the progressive left in the House, and Lauren Boebert on the whatever that's supposed to be on the right, addressing in real time the violence that we saw in Uvalde, the continuing spree of mass shootings and school-based mass shootings just this year alone. Lauren Boebert very helpfully responded, as we covered yesterday in the show, by tweeting out, you cannot legislate away evil, which is not a thing that anyone was asking to do. It is 100% an abdication of your actual responsibilities. It's your job to legislate at all, not in the area of evil. Now, at the time, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responded by saying, why even be in Congress if you don't believe in doing your job? Just quit and let someone who actually gives a damn do it, instead of acting like a useless piece of furniture when babies are shot with AR-15s that we let teen boys impulse buy before they can legally have a beer. Now, obviously, Lauren Boebert is not going to address the ridiculous fact that we let kids have guns like this. She's going to move right past that. And she's going to respond saying, defund the police. Gun-free zones have proven to be deadly. Let me know when you're ready to do your job and effectively protect our schools with armed security. Let's meet and solve this. And since then, AOC has responded substantively to those points, pointing out that there were armed guards at this particular shooting, at others too, at schools. But at this shooting, there were armed guards, there were police. The school district in Uvalde has its own police department, actually. 40% of the city's budget, nearly half of their entire budget, goes to the police. They've been doing training. It was hardened, as they say they want these schools to be, training for active shooters. They had the defense, they had the training, they had the preparation, and none of that stopped so many people from being killed. And none of that got Lauren Boebert to actually think for a split second about what she was advocating for, saying that this is a gun-free zone. It wasn't. They had guards. But countries all around the world, Brett, have gun-free zone schools. Sweden, Norway, Spain, Madagascar. These are gun-free zones, and yet they're not the sites of mass shootings on a weekly basis.
Gun-free zones work, or gun-free zones don't work when someone has a gun in them and shoots people with it, right? If gun-free zones don't work, well then someone is going to kill Trump at his NRA speech. because that is a gun-free zone. That is a story that's going around. The only place in Texas where you can't bring a gun is to Trump's speech. According to her logic, that puts Trump in real danger. And when called out for that, she'd probably say, yeah, sure, it's probably but it's okay because people hate Donald Trump. But like, when she says you can't legislate away evil, that on its face is a horrible, logical disaster for her, because she declares everything evil and she tries to legislate that away. Critical race theory, evil, let's legislate it away.
Yep.
Any kind of injustice that we point out, they point out, they want to legislate, and they try to pass laws, and they do everywhere. Voting, they think, is evil. They want to legislate it away. So that doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
And what you do is you try to make things illegal, so there are higher consequences and less likelihood that someone will be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say that right now I wanted to get a rocket launcher. According to them, I can. It being illegal doesn't matter. If I want it, I can get it. How? I have some resources. I have a car. I could drive somewhere. I have some money. Can't get one. If I wanted a fully automatic AK-47, I have money. Why don't I just do it? Doesn't matter that it's illegal, right? Because that is the whole point. That is the entire point. And she doesn't have a response to any of this. No one's gonna ask her any tough questions. If they do, like in the Sky News interview, she's just gonna flee. It's because she doesn't care about any of this. She's not actually interested in stopping these shootings. She doesn't put any thought to it. She's not losing sleep. Her heart doesn't break for the children of Uvalde. This is a political game to her. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the person who sends out Christmas cards of her tiny little kids with giant assault weapons grinning.
She thinks it's cute, it's funny. Anyway, look, she says we need more armed guards. As we've shown in this case, it didn't actually help. And by the way, studies have shown that in 197 instances of gun violence at US schools since 1999, SROs, who these officers are, intervened successfully in only 3 instances. And by the way, they found that at places that have SROs, there are more injuries when these shootings happen. I don't know exactly why that is, but that's what all of the evidence actually shows. The evidence is irrelevant because they're never going to engage with it. They will continue to call for things that literally existed at the site of the shooting they're responding to. Now, with that said, if you're on one of our linear platforms or on the podcast, thank you so much for listening. We do have other news to get to, including non-school shooting related news, thankfully. We'll get to all that in just a few after this. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm John Iadarola, joined by the host of Happy Half Hour, sometimes co-host of Game Busters, Brett Erlich. Brett, thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here, John. It's a great week. Everyone cannot deny that it's been one of the greatest weeks of all time. That's why everyone's so chipper and happy.
They are. A little bit happy from the 20th anniversary party. Kind of happy about the fact that I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi series is starting tomorrow.
Yes.
And other than that, nothing. Nothing. I might make a pizza tomorrow. Those are the only sources of happiness in the universe. And I don't just mean for me. I mean for literally everyone. Those are the only sources of happiness.
The few remaining nodes of joy to mine.
That's it. We're running low. Anyway, thank you everyone for being here. We've got a couple things to let you know about. Apparently, the live redirects work now on YouTube. Obviously, it already has long worked on Twitch because tech-wise, Twitch just has had a couple legs up on YouTube that YouTube hasn't really seemed to care to fix. But anyway, now if you're on YouTube, you should get a prompt to go over to the indisputable stream. So hopefully that'll work. That would be cool. Thank you, regardless of what platform you watch on. Want to let you know that next Tuesday, we're going to be doing our annual LGBTQ plus Pride special. We're very excited for it. I'm going to be on it. Adrian Lawrence, a huge number of names. Oh my God, Margaret Cho, Daniel Franzese, Kenneth Lopez, River Butcher, Plastic Martyr, Jason Carter, Ben Carolla, Ray Vanna, and Laverne Cox. No big deal. Coming out of the brief little chit chat we had at the Webbies. Apparently he's gonna be joining me for the first segment. So very exciting. That special will be happening at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And as part of the Pride special, Shop TYT is gonna be donating 100% of its profits to the Trevor Project. You can check out our Pride collection at Shop TYT to support an organization that has always been important, but God, over the past year or so, even more so considering the priorities of the right in attacking that community. So with that said, I'm gonna read just a couple of quick comments before we jump to the news. Jono Lacey has been a member for 14 months. Says this reminds me of Patton Oswalt's bit about Fox versus NPR. I don't actually know that one. I'm gonna need to look that up. But thank you. Atticus Emerson, member for 17 months, says as a survivor of SV who's been to trial, watching the proceedings, her Depp trial has been difficult but cathartic. Making this public is important to create discussions and awareness around the subject. Okay. I think that maybe some of that will come out of it. I have witnessed some of the conversations coming out of it. There are a broad range of conversations, I will say. But thank you for your perspective. I do appreciate it. Ted Cruz Wedgie Dragon says, let's take a moment to honor the sacrifice of our brave children who lay down their lives to protect our right to bear arms.
Jesus,
yes,
that is
bold. Dark. Yes, that is very dark. Misty Payne, welcome to Tier 1 membership. Thank you for being with us. Gilbert Wilcox, welcome to Tier 2 membership. At Tier 2 on YouTube, you get access to the top 10 list that I do with Francesca Fiorentini. This week we did our top 10 movies that needed sequels that never got one. We had a lot of fun in that conversation. I'm gonna read just one super chat. Natural One Dragon says, hey chat, Representative Greene said, you can't legislate away evil. Agreed, let's defund the police and military then. Exactly, yeah, no, she threw it out there. Well, Lauren Boebert threw it out there and doesn't actually care about the implications of any of it. But anyway, with that said, we gotta get back into some news. We're gonna have some sort of light stuff, kind of, but not just yet. So with that, let's jump into this. In advance of what might be coming within a few weeks, within a month, the Supreme Court on Roe v. Wade, the right-wing strike back against reproductive rights, that war continues on the ground. Apparently, an abortion clinic that was set to open next month in Wyoming was damaged by fire early yesterday. And police believe that it was a case of arson, that it was deliberately set. The story is still developing, but we're gonna go with what we know from the initial reporting. So according to the AP, the clinic was gonna provide other healthcare services as well as abortion services. Had been set to open in June as only the second place in the entire state to offer abortions. The current lone location is at a hospital in Jackson, 281 miles away. And apparently in relation to this particular attack, a person who called authorities before dawn saw someone running from the building with what appeared to be a gas can and a black bag. Investigators were reviewing video footage from the area in hopes of identifying the subject or generating some sort of suspect description. No injuries were reported, and I haven't found a very clear idea of how damaged the clinic was. It is possible it was superficial. I don't know if this is, at this point, if this is going to delay the actual opening, but this is sort of what we've been warning. Like we like coming out of the conversation about the leak back on May 3rd about Roe v. Wade, the right lost their mind about how the pro-abortion left was going to get violent. And we reminded people that is not typically how this has played out on the ground. This is what has been going on. We're gonna get to the stats in a little bit, Brett, but what do you think?
Law-abiding citizens would use that facility. Law-abiding citizens. And these folks who advocate for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. I'm fine with people using political discourse to try to change things. But if you support this kind of action, you are against the rule of law. This is insane. I mean, when you hear like, you should suspect arson in a situation like this when something like that happens, and then you hear somebody say, "I saw someone run away with a gas can." But either way, you don't need to just have this. It seems like
it might be arson,
maybe a little arson. But maybe there's a long history of violence perpetrated by people on the right in this crazy crusade to create less freedom in America, because they're obsessed with being in charge of other people's bodies. That's what they want. I'm on the left. I advocate for more freedom than people on the right. And when I say that, I want people to have freedom to do what they want with their bodies when it comes down to how they should make medical decisions for their own bodies in accordance with the law, which is on my side, as well as any other number of things like how they should behave sexually. I would like to leave it up to them, as opposed to this weird perv kink that people on the right have, where they want you to run it by them first to see if it's okay with their Jesus. If you touch someone's hoo-ha, the only person you should check with to see if it's okay to touch their hoo-ha is the person whose hoo-ha you want to touch.
Rules to live by. I do agree. Yes, and I want to, like you've pointed out, the gap between their stated positions in regards to things like freedom and what they actually advocate for. Well, let's point out the gap between what they call themselves, the pro-life movement, and what they've done in practice. So they murdered 11 people: doctors, clinic employees, a clinic escort, a security guard, a police officer. This is between 1993 and 2016. There were 26 other attempted murders. So they were so pro-life that they were willing to kill dozens of people, including cops, along the way. That's how pro-life they actually were. Also, between 1977 and 2015, they directed more than 7,200 reported acts of violence at abortion providers, 42 bombings, 185 arson attacks, thousands of death threats, bioterrorism threats, and assaults, hundreds of thousands of acts of disruption, which can be other bomb threats, harassing calls, all of this. It was just an organized and disorganized at the same time campaign of terror over literally decades against people who were simply following their constitutional rights. That is what this movement actually was. I'm being reminded by my producer that the bombing at the Atlanta Olympics was also conducted by an anti-abortion terrorist. That is what we were invoking when saying the idea that protesting outside of Alito's house is an act of violence. In the context of what we're talking about, that you think we're the violent side, though you guys were literally, Bill O'Reilly spent years trying to whip the movement into a frenzy and ended up, he was around the subject of a doctor who got murdered. I'll say that.
The left is so against violence that some people think that like insults on the left think insults are an act of violence, like non-hate speech insults are an act of violence. Like, no, the left is pretty allergic to violence. The right is the one who is like, well, more guns, please, and let's go bomb an abortion clinic.
Yep. Yeah, Anna and I had the argument on the show yesterday when she was calling Ted Cruz ugly. We so don't like violence.
He's not ugly in the blobfish community. If you are a cis hetero female blobfish, you would love him to spray a whole cloud of goo over your egg sack. But in the human community, he looks like a blobfish.
This was an act of harassment that you just witnessed on Twitch or YouTube. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna turn to, I think, a subject that Brett cannot get gross on. Okay, I think we've got one. But first, Shadow Dragon Dreamer sent in a super chat to say, we live in a country where Trump was president. Is it really any surprise that people are so focused on the Depp Heard BS? It's the new American way. Thank you. Transgressive Chemist sent in a super chat to say, still procrastinating my thesis to watch Dragon Daddy. Also, Brett, you made my week by meowing during the Dragon social break. I needed that laugh. Thank you.
Hey, John, how do cats like their steak?
How?
Rare.
I was thinking Meowdium rare. That's what you're gonna go with. Anyway, but do your thesis. You can't day after day use me as an excuse. You gotta do your thesis eventually. Anyway, Dystopian Dragon says assault rifles and armor-piercing rounds should not be in a civil society. I agree, and why aren't cops on our side? I don't understand it. Your allies want the people you face to be armed like the Terminator, and you don't have a problem with it.
Well, just so they can stand outside, stand outside while they wait for the TAC team to show up. It's like, if I can carve out that experience, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
okay. With that, let's jump into some very different news, starting with this.
Donald Trump has doubled down on his claim that the election is rigged against him. He won't say whether he'll accept the results, breaking a long tradition in our democracy.
Well, I disagree with Mr. Trump on this issue. The election is not rigged. So I have full faith and confidence in the outcome of the election in this district and across this country. And I would urge candidates across this country to accept the outcome.
Tens of millions of Americans are rightly concerned that the 2020 election featured unprecedented voting irregularities, unconstitutional overreach by unelected state officials and judges ignoring state election laws, and a fundamental lack of ballot integrity and ballot security.
So that is Representative Elise Stefanik. And let's be clear, there are a lot of politicians on the right, Republican politicians that say that the election was stolen, that the whole thing's untrustworthy, we need to strip away people's right to vote, all of that. And genuinely believe it. Now, she is saying it, but she doesn't actually believe that that's true. She was very clearly on tape just a couple of years ago on the exact opposite side of that conversation. But then she apparently read the room and realized, if I want to do well in this party, I need to pretend that the election was stolen. I need to jump into the big lie. And she has done that, and it looks like she might be rewarded for it. Apparently, according to CNN, there's conversations going on at Mar-a-Lago where Elise Stefanik might be Donald Trump's vice president candidate if he runs again in 2024. Current and former advisors and others in Trump's orbit have privately argued that the New York Republican who replaced Representative Liz Cheney as the #3 House Republican last year is a fierce and loyal attack dog. Not loyal to the truth, to be clear, or to democracy or the Constitution or any of that, but loyal to, I guess, whoever it is that can pay her or give her an opportunity. So anyway, Trump he's not committed to the idea of having a female running mate, but he likes the idea, and she might be the front runner for that at this point, Brett.
There's a couple things. One, the weird phenomenon in politics, which makes sense when you think about it for like 2 seconds, that the right is so generally sexist, right? And they know that, and they need to kind of head that off at the pass in very superficial ways that are easy for them to say, no, we're not. And that's why the right is the one that's gonna have, they had Sarah Palin. They're like, maybe this will work. Maybe no one will notice. So where's Dave Rubin? Get him in the bag. So there's that. The other thing is obviously with Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik is my definition of evil. She is someone who will abandon all principles that she represents outwardly at one point, just for the naked pursuit of power, and that's what she's doing. Obviously, she's going to take this. Obviously, if she's just some person in politics, and she can be the number 3 person in her party by changing one opinion, even though it undermines the concept of democracy in America. Obviously, she's going to do it, and once she's done that, she'll do anything.
Yeah, she's abandoned all hope, effectively.
That's evil stuff.
I agree. In some ways, more so than a person who, when you look in their eyes, there's nothing there. You just see, your face reflecting off the back of their skull, like a Marjorie Greene. She says things, but the conscious decision to side with evil seems worse, almost.
And all I can do is point out the calculus that you have to do if you're an activist on the left is learn from that. Like, you break horses so you can ride them. So someone basically broke her into being this person who will fit what the right's base wants. How does the left break its leadership into giving them what they want in a position of power? But I will say, in what I've seen from Bernie lately and what I've seen on the right, is it's still Elise Stefanik. It's still the person who was going to do anything to get power, not to help the base anyway. So they're going to be in power and not help their base. That's going to be the result of it. How do you get someone to be in power and actually help the base? That's the nut you got to crack.
Sure. Anyway, there are other names floating around. We'll get to them at some point, I'm sure, between now and the election. I will say, on behalf of people like Marjorie Greene, Lauren Boebert, sort of messed up that he's turning against you. I mean, it seems like he's listening to the deep state. He's going with these Republican politicians who weren't committed to the big lie. Sort of messed up that he's turning against you at this point. But anyway, with that said, we're going to jump into another story in 1 second. I just was knocked out of all of my documents by Google, which is really fun. But when we get back into that, I did see a news update in a super chat that we have to just briefly read. Google is doing everything it can now to reload these super chats. I think it's at the top of the section, but none of them are filled in yet. Okay, here it goes. Rick Smith sent in a super chat saying, breaking, Joe Garcia, the husband of Irma Garcia, one of 2 teachers shot and killed in Uvalde on Tuesday, has reportedly suffered a fatal heart attack. So sad, 4 kids left behind. That is just devastating. Thank you for the update. God, man, there's just so much horror coming out of this situation. And it's made so much worse by the knowledge that nothing productive will be done to stop this from happening the next time. Okay, with that said, I apologize. I'm having some problems with my document. We're going to try to do this next block. I don't know that it's going to work, but let's jump into this. We have the H block. I can just start. Signal me. Maybe I wasn't the only person who was logged out of my stuff. Anyway, we're just going to talk about it. Oh, there you go. In bizarre courtroom news, a woman, Crampton Brophy, apparently previewed, according to what's happening in this courtroom, a murder of her husband by publishing an essay titled "How to Murder Your Husband" years before apparently doing so. A 12-person judge found her guilty of second-degree murder just yesterday after deliberating for 2 days. Apparently, Daniel Brophy was a 63-year-old chef, was killed on the June 2nd, 2018, as he prepared for work at the Oregon Culinary Institute in Southwest Portland. So, look, the lawyers tried to say that this essay it has nothing to do with anything. It seems weird to regular people, though, and so we need to dive into it. The start of the essay says, as a romantic suspense writer, I spend a lot of time thinking about murder and consequently about police procedure. After all, if the murder is supposed to set me free, I certainly don't want to spend any time in jail. And let me say clearly for the record, I don't like jumpsuits and orange isn't my color. So with that, talking about the motivations for murder, here is what she sketched out 7 years before apparently killing her own husband. So financial motives, this is big. Divorce is expensive. And do you really want to split your possessions? Or if you married for money, aren't you entitled to all of it? The drawback is the police aren't stupid. They're looking at you first, so you have to be organized, ruthless, and very clever. Husbands have disappeared from cruise ships before. Why not yours? She says on the lying, cheating bastard, this is a crime of passion and anger. You bash his head in or stab him with a kitchen knife. Most of the time, there's a trail that leads directly to you. Each type of murder leaves clues. A crime of passion does not look like a stranger was involved. And who is left to clean the blood from your carpeting? And look, she goes through a lot of these different things. She also considers how to kill your husband, including with guns, but she had apparently ruled it out back in 2011, saying guns are loud, messy, and require some skill. If it takes 10 shots for the sucker to die, either you have terrible aim or he's on drugs. She went through knives and strangling him, bludgeoning him, and using poison, and she doesn't seem to have been satisfied with any of those options, Brett. In the end, I guess she went back to the one that was easiest, and it didn't work out for her legally.
She needed to have written an essay called How Not to Kill Your Husband. And then
that wouldn't have been suspicious.
The police would be like, not her. She wrote an essay saying not to kill your husband. It's good. I get it though. If it is the case that she actually did kill her husband, like for a while with this, it used to be like those who can't teach, but it seems like she can both teach and do.
Jesus. Now, of course, look, this is terrible. She apparently actually did it. And even if somehow this is a case of injustice, someone did, the husband was killed. So devastating, but like imagine being that husband and seeing that essay and then maybe just briefly wondering, like that seems like sort of a weird thing to focus on, but then moving past it, because love and marriage and all that. And then it ends up happening. This is such a bizarre, twisted tragedy.
I don't know, like it's a little too perfect. If I wanted to kill her husband and I saw that she wrote that, I'd be like, wrote that? I saw that she wrote that, nice. I'd be like, now's the time, Sonny.
100%. Anyway, I will say I am happily married. My wife actually is a screenwriter, and this weekend I am going to be combing through her scripts very carefully, just in case there's something to worry about. Anyway, with that said, that's all the time we have. Brett Erlich, thank you for joining us as always.
It's great to be here. Hopefully the weather clears up for Farron so that yes. He can be on tomorrow. Otherwise it's me again.
Exactly, yes. If not, then you will be joining us. Either way, we will be throwing away our Garbage People of the Week. So you can head over to the community tab, assuming Sophie has done that, and you can vote. Yeah, go vote. You can vote for your garbage person of the week. Also, Indisputable will be coming up on the other side of this break, but also so will I. I'm actually going to be joining Adrian Lawrence for Indisputable. So don't go anywhere. You should be getting the live redirector if you're on YouTube. And so I will see you then. But until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you on Indisputable.